There is nothing new you need to enter. You are already here. The openness you touched before did not close when the sound ended. It did not disappear when attention moved elsewhere. It did not need to be maintained. It remains quietly, without asking for recognition. This space is not something you visit. It is something that stays. And perhaps what you are noticing now is not an opening at all, but the absence of the need to open further. A gentle sense that nothing is required, no adjustment, no improvement, no effort to remain present, just this already wide, already available. You may notice how easily the body is still responding. Breath moving on its own, weight resting where it naturally rests. Awareness not reaching outward, not turning inward, simply present. There is no instruction here, because nothing needs correcting. You are not being guided toward an experience. You are being met where experience has softened. If there is a sense of space, let it be space. If there is no sensation at all, let that be enough too. Openness does not announce itself. It does not demand to be felt. It is not fragile. It does not collapse when attention wanders. It does not vanish when thought appears. It holds even movement. Many people believe openness must be maintained, that it requires vigilance, that it fades if not watched carefully. But openness is not a state you hold. It is what remains when holding relaxes. You may notice that nothing here is asking you to slow down, and yet everything is slower. Nothing is asking you to be quiet, and yet the noise is no longer leading. This is not stillness created by stopping. It is stillness revealed by not interfering. You do not need to stay open. Openness stays. And if at any point you feel uncertainty, a subtle question like, "Am I doing this right?" let that question rest too. Even doubt does not disturb this space. It can appear, it can pass. It does not need to be answered. There is no edge you can fall off of here. Nothing to lose, nothing to miss. Only the quiet recognition that what is open does not need guarding. If you notice a sense of relief, let it be quiet. If you notice nothing at all, let that be honest. This space is not measured by sensation. It is known by ease. And ease does not need to be named to be present. For now, there is nowhere to go next. No insight waiting just ahead. No moment you must arrive at. Only the simple noticing that openness does not end. It rests, it holds, it remains, even when unnoticed. And you can stay here without trying. There is a difference between settling and trying to stay settled. What is here now does not need to be stabilized. Nothing is drifting away. Sometimes the mind quietly checks, is this still here? Am I still open? But that checking is not necessary. And noticing it does not require stopping it. Even the impulse to confirm can rest. You are not balancing on a thin edge. This space does not depend on precision. It is wide enough to include uncertainty, stable enough to include movement. You may notice small shifts, a change in breath, a thought passing, a sensation appearing and dissolving. None of this means openness is leaving. Openness does not oppose activity. It does not require silence to survive. It is not something that must be protected from life. What settles now is not attention. It is the need to manage attention. Not effort giving way to effortlessness, but effort realizing it was never required. You might notice the body adjusting slightly on its own, a shoulder dropping, the jaw softening, or nothing at all. There is no correct response. Settling does not look like anything. It feels more like permission than posture, and permission does not need to be renewed. If thoughts arise, let them move. If emotion appears, let it be present. There is no need to step back from experience and no need to enter it more fully. This openness does not live at a distance from life. It lives with it. Holding would imply something fragile, but this is not fragile. You do not lose openness by engaging with the world. You do not lose it by forgetting about it. You do not lose it by thinking. It remains through all of that. The sense of doing may soften further here, not because you stopped doing, but because doing was never the source of stability. You may notice that nothing needs to be named. Nothing needs to be understood. Understanding does not deepen this space. Relaxation does, and even relaxation is optional. This is not about achieving a certain quality. It is about noticing that qualities come and go without disturbing what is already open. You are not holding the field. You are inside it, and it does not require maintenance. For now, allow this to remain unremarkable, unspecial, undramatic, because what is most stable rarely announces itself, and what is most real does not require reinforcement. Sooner or later, something draws attention outward. A sound, a memory, a thought about what comes next. This does not close what is open. Movement does not undo stillness. Life does not interrupt presence. The field you are in is not separate from activity. It does not sit behind experience. It moves through it. You may notice awareness shifting between sensations, thoughts, and the environment. This is not distraction. This is life happening inside openness. There is no requirement to stay inward. No need to keep focus narrow or wide. Openness is not a stance you maintain. It is the context in which all stances appear. Even when attention seems absorbed in something, openness remains quietly intact. You do not need to step back from engagement to recover it. You may notice that actions arise without preparation. Words form without planning. Movements happen without direction. This is not loss of presence. It is presence expressing itself. Nothing needs to slow down for openness to remain. Even complexity is allowed. Even emotion. If emotion arises, notice how it moves within space. Not as a problem to solve, not as something to hold or release, just movement. Openness does not resist intensity. It does not try to smooth it out. It holds intensity the same way it holds calm, without preference. You might sense that the boundary between inside and outside is softer now. Not gone, just less important. The world feels closer, but not heavier. This is not merging. It is not withdrawal. It is simple contact without contraction. Staying open does not mean staying neutral. It means staying available. Available to feel, available to respond, available to change. You do not have to protect this space from life. Life is not a threat to it. If anything, life confirms it. Because openness is not fragile enough to be broken by experience. It is what experience appears within. And as activity continues, this does not need to be remembered. It does not need to be held in mind. It remains quietly, naturally, without asking anything from you. At some point, a subtle habit may try to re-enter, the sense that you should come back to openness, that you left it, that you need to return. Notice that this idea appears inside openness itself. Nothing has moved away. Even the thought of leaving did not go anywhere. There is no moment when openness disappears and later reappears. There is only changing experience within what remains unchanged. When you notice that noticing is already enough, no correction is required, no inner step needs to be taken. Awareness does not travel back and forth. It does not lose itself and then recover. It simply recognizes what is already present. You may feel moments where attention becomes narrow, focused, engaged. This is not closing. It is just shape. Openness is not measured by how wide attention feels. It is not measured by calm, clarity, or silence. It is measured by nothing at all, because it is not a state. There is no distance between awareness and what is noticed. So there is no path back. Even effort appears inside openness. Even trying appears inside it. So nothing you do can take you away. You may begin to sense that staying open is not an action. It is not something you manage. It is simply what remains when effort is unnecessary. This does not require remembering. Memory comes and goes. It does not require vigilance. Vigilance tightens. It does not require trust. Trust is another movement that can rest. Openness does not need support. It is already supporting everything else. If the mind becomes busy, that busyness floats inside space. If the body becomes tired, that heaviness rests inside space. If clarity fades, that fading happens inside space. Nothing falls out. You are not holding openness. Openness is holding experience. And because of this, there is nothing to sustain, nothing to stabilize, nothing to keep alive. It lives without effort. It stays without resistance. It does not ask for your participation. You may notice that the impulse to return grows quieter now, not because you stopped it, but because it has nothing left to do. Returning only makes sense when something was lost. Nothing has been. And as this becomes obvious, even the idea of practice begins to loosen. There is nothing wrong with practice, but here, nothing depends on it. Staying open happens by itself when nothing is interfering, and nothing needs to be removed. There is a moment when the effort to hold openness is seen for what it is. Not wrong, not misguided, just unnecessary. Nothing here has been depending on that effort. You may notice how subtle it was. The quiet tension of maintaining, the background sense of keeping something in place. When that eases, nothing collapses, nothing drifts. What remains is not lighter or heavier, it is simply unburdened. Holding was never stabilizing openness. It was only adding weight. And when that weight drops, there is a natural ease that does not need explanation. This ease is not relief from struggle. It is the absence of a struggle that did not need to be there. Nothing here needs to be contained. Nothing needs to be managed. Even awareness does not need supervision. Experience moves freely. Thoughts arise, sensations change, feelings pass, all without threatening what is open. You might notice that control loosens on its own, not as a decision, not as a letting go, just a quiet recognition that nothing has been at risk. Openness was never fragile enough to require guarding, and because nothing is being guarded, nothing needs to be released. The mind may still reach out of habit, checking, adjusting, orienting. Let it. Habit does not disturb what is already free. Nothing needs to be trained away. Nothing needs to be corrected. There is no posture to maintain here, no stance to return to. Openness does not come from holding the right shape. It comes from not needing a shape at all. You may sense that effort has been replaced, not by effortlessness, but by neutrality, a simple lack of strain. Not calm as a feeling, but calm as absence of friction. This is not something you remain inside. It is what remains when remaining is not required. Nothing needs to be held together. Nothing needs to be watched. Nothing needs to be sustained. What is open without assistance. And when this becomes obvious, the system settles on its own, not into stillness, into trust, Not trust in something, trust as something. A quiet confidence that nothing essential can be lost. There is often an unspoken expectation that ease arrives at a certain point, that something settles and stays settled, that a conclusion is reached. But what is open does not arrive anywhere. Ease here is not a destination. It is what becomes noticeable when nothing is being pushed toward an ending. Nothing has been moving toward resolution. Nothing has been waiting to complete itself. So there is no moment when ease finally happens. It has been present in the background, quiet, steady, unannounced. You may notice that the urge to reach a stopping point softens now, not because it was denied, but because it no longer makes sense. There is no finish line for openness, no final clarity that confirms it, no stable feeling that proves you have arrived. What remains is simpler than that. Experience continues, and openness continues with it. Sometimes there is comfort, sometimes there is neutrality, sometimes there is nothing in particular. None of these define what is open. Ease does not mean pleasure. It does not mean peace. It means the absence of demand. No demand to feel better. No demand to understand more. No demand to stay in a certain condition. You are not expected to stay open perfectly. There is no perfect. Openness does not ask you to hold a certain tone. It does not reward consistency. It remains regardless. You may notice how natural this feels. Not special, not elevated, just ordinary. That ordinariness is important. It means nothing has been added. Nothing here depends on silence. Nothing depends on attention staying wide. Even effort, when it appears, is simply another movement passing through. And effort passes too. There is no arriving at ease, because ease is not a state. It is the lack of interference with what is already happening. And interference has been quietly loosening on its own, not through practice, not through understanding, through recognition. Recognition that nothing has needed to be carried this far. Nothing has been waiting at the end, and because of that, there is nowhere you need to go next. The sense of openness does not ask you to remain here. It simply does not leave. There is nothing here that needs to be concluded. No moment to seal. No experience to complete. What has been present does not end when the words slow. It does not depend on continuation. Nothing has been opened that must now be closed. The openness you've noticed was not created by entering this space, and it will not disappear when attention moves on. Sound will continue. Thought will return to its patterns. The body will move. None of this takes anything away. There is no transition required out of openness, because nothing ever stepped into it. Life resumes in the same place it has always been, inside what is already open. If there is a sense of quiet now, let it be quiet. If there is restlessness, let that be restlessness. Neither asks for correction. Nothing here needs to be remembered. Nothing needs to be carried forward. What remains does not rely on memory. You may notice that there is no final instruction, no cue to do something next. That absence is intentional, because nothing is being handed to you. There is no technique to take away, no insight to apply, just the simple recognition that what is open does not require your participation to remain so. And as the moment shifts, as attention finds its next place, this does not need to be marked. There is nothing to lose, nothing to protect, nothing to close. Only continuity, only what is already happening, held without effort,